All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome into week 10. Start, sit, waiver wire, trades, dynasty, all that kind of stuff. AMA. How the heck is it week 10 already? It feels weird that we're like almost halfway through November. Like I was just like, didn't November just like start? But now it's like we're halfway through November. This season is just chugging right along. John, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. I just recovering from my. I'm going to use this joke again, but I'm recovering from my Panthers Bears watch party from last night.
Oh,
We had a bunch of people over. I'm just kidding. We didn't nobody. I didn't even watch a game. So
you didn't
any chance
think it was worth your view?
I was watching the box score because I did have a couple of prize picks slips going. But I was actually happy that the Bears won because it probably means it's worse for them to get the first pick, but it actually is better for them that they won because they have the Panthers first pick. So I learned that yesterday or this morning that some three-dimensional chess there by the Bears winning their game and improving their chances of landing number one pick. So there you go.
It's not. Yeah, I was gonna say it's not their number one pick, right? Because then they trade their pick. So
as part of the Bryce Young trade, they got Panthers number one pick. So if the Panthers, they got the Panthers first round pick. So if the Panthers end up with the number one pick, it's good to go to the Bears.
Yep. And maybe it helped your Packers by the Bears winning, and the Packers lose more. Then
then they move up a little bit. I don't know.
Yep. You sneaking in the top 5. You draft a new quarterback.
They just won. They just beat the Rams. They're going to end up like 6-11 or something, and draft a defensive tackle.
Could be worse. It could be the Steelers who do the exact same thing, except they're at 16 instead of 6. So, all right. But enough of all that. We got questions to answer. So you guys are already throwing in some questions in here. We're going to start. Yan Baggy with the Dynasty Question says that he wants to trade away Jacoby Myers and a 2025 second for Hollywood Brown. He has Kyler Murray in a one quarterback league, so it's to get more of the stack, especially with what we saw from Hollywood last year with Kyler Murray as the wide receiver 1 before Hopkins came back. He wants this deal to go down, but he's unsure if the other person is going to do it. And I also hope that you get this deal done. I would take Hollywood in this trade as well too. I really like Jacoby Myers, but I feel like we just kind of know what Jacoby is, and Hollywood has shown spurts of eliteness, including, like I just mentioned, first half of the season. So yeah, I would really hope that you can pull this trade off as well too. Would you? Are you in on Hollywood as a second half breakout kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the entire Cardinals offense, it might not happen right away. I know there's a Call of Duty angle to this for Kyler this week. There's some sort of Call of Duty release. But
I heard the Call of Duty game is bad, so maybe that helps a little bit.
Maybe he takes it seriously, his football career this week. I have Marquise Brown and Michael Wilson listed as sneaky starts this week. Kyler Murray has offered 243 yards, 1.47 touchdowns per game during his career. That's 34% more yards and 65% more touchdowns per game than Joshua Dobbs and Clayton Tune have offered this year. He averaged 6.6 catches for 71 yards, 0.38 touchdowns in 8 games with Murray last year. And obviously Michael Wilson has had a good year, kind of out of nowhere, but not real consistent. Obviously the quarterback situation in Arizona has been dicey. I actually think also Rondale Moore is interesting as a potential pickup off the waiver wire. I don't know how. I think he's probably a very low rostered player. He averaged 53 yards per game in 6 games last year with Kyler Murray. So I'm very optimistic that this Arizona offense passing attack will pick up significantly in the second half. I think it's a great trade if you can get, especially with Myers dealing with his quarterback change. They're going to go run heavy. Aiden O'Connell tends to. I mean, he did get a touchdown last week, Myers, but Aiden O'Connell tends to just
touchdown, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. He tends to just pepper Devontae Adams with targets. So that'll be a good move.
In other Hollywood Dynasty moves, D Money traded a late first and a 2025 first to get Hollywood Brown and then his 2025 first back. And he's noting that he's not looking to contend until 2025. So if his own 2025 first, he kind of has the flexibility to kind of control where that ultimately lands up. And if that's an earlier 25 first and that beats out the other 25 first, that's a win. And I would take Hollywood over a late 2024 first. So I like both assets that you got over the two assets that you paid. Perfect trade right there, in my opinion, as well. And then while we're at it, John is in here. What's your value on Kyler Murray? Is he worth trying to trade for? He has Justin Fields in a league, and he wants to trade for him unless you'd rather have Justin Fields.
Well, the issue with Justin Fields is we don't know when he's going to play again. I think there's a general feeling that he's assuming that he's going to be back soon, but he's got a thumb injury and he's having trouble gripping the ball. I also don't know how invested the Bears needed to win last night. I understand the three-dimensional chess they were playing on Thursday Night Football, but are they trying to win games down the stretch? I'm sure the players are. I don't know, if the coaching staff's been instructed to be competitive, but let's improve that draft stock. But they're probably leaning on the Panthers pick to get Caleb. So just down the stretch here, like if you're assuming a healthy Kyler and a healthy Fields, I think they are pretty close in value. Kyler has been a consistent top 6, top 7 type fantasy quarterback. Fields probably has a little more upside this rest of season if he's healthy because he runs the ball more. I think Kyler's with the ACL injury might limit the number of times he takes off and runs. That's just speculation. Just thinking, okay, I'm going to protect my knee a little bit, or I'm not maybe as explode, but he's so fast that even if he's 80%, 90% of his usual self, he can still take off and get some yards running. Right. I do expect him to try to throw the ball a bit more this year, which could help his passing numbers and offset the loss of rushing. But we all know that rushing is the bread and butter for these running quarterbacks, especially. But Kyler's solid. So I think that there is the long answer. It's close with Fields' thumb injury, not knowing what rest of season looks like for him. I would rather have, I think, Kyler. It's tough though, because you just don't know when Fields is going to be back.
And then his kind of second is like, what about dynasty wise? So to speak on that, I mean, John, I think laid it out perfectly, kind of the expectations for the remainder of just this season. And the fact that you even think that it's close when you consider Justin Fields' injury compared to Kyler kind of returning. But I think we both believe that Kyler is a better quarterback than Justin Fields, especially for fantasy. And then when you combine in the long-term aspects of both of these players, like you just mentioned, like the Bears could have Caleb Williams locked and loaded. And yes, while they could trade away Justin Fields and he could be a starter somewhere else, I said could a couple of times in there. Kyler, while yes, the Cardinals could move away from him at the end of the year too if they have a higher draft pick and they kind of want to hit the reset button with a new coaching staff, I could understand that as well too. But I am more confident that Kyler is going to be a starting quarterback next year than I am that Justin Fields is going to be. That might not be a massive difference in probabilities. Like it could be like Kyler's like 95% of start next year and Justin Fields like 80% of start next year. That's not a massive difference and probably means that they're both going to be a starter. But I would take Kyler Murray. I've seen more from Kyler over his career. I have more faith in what he can do as a quarterback and less fear of him being completely replaced and potentially a backup.
Yeah, if I could add to that, just the decision to activate Kyler to trade Dobbs sort of just indicates to me that this coaching staff wants Kyler to be the quarterback in the future. Like they want to, they're by activating him, they're increasing their chances of winning games and decreasing their chances of getting the number 1 pick. So I think they're, instead of trying to play that game, they're trying to play all right, we're moving forward with Kyler as our franchise quarterback. It's a fresh start with a new coaching staff, because it seemed like there was a problem between Kyler Murray and the previous coaching staff. Yeah. So like, I think next year we're pretty good idea that Kyler Murray is going to be the starting quarterback for the Cardinals. I mean, that's at least the bet that I would place.
Right.
Whereas Fields, it's heading the wrong way with Fields.
Right. I think ideally the Cardinals would like Kyler to be their long-term option. But I think that there's just enough doubt in there that maybe that they have the ability to not move ahead with that if they wanted to. But I think they want Kyler and they want to make that work. D Money tossed us the super sticker as well too. So I wanted to give that a shout out. D Money, thank you so much. And he also said, shout out to the member only videos on the DLF channel for those moves to trade, for Hollywood trade for future picks and stuff like that. These are the kind of the topics and insight that we can try to give in member only videos on the membership side for DLF. So if you're interested, you could join on that side as well too.
I didn't mention Trey McBride too. Like this whole Cardinals offense is going to look a lot better, I think, once Kyler knocks the rust off.
And James Conner comes back.
I mean, I think the window to trade for Hollywood in most leagues was probably a week or two ago, but we weren't sure what was going on with Kyler, so it was hard to sit there and say, pound the table. But to me, it looked like they were going to activate him, and they did. But some of these, like Rondale Moore and Trey McBride, might be more available. Michael Wilson might be more available in these leagues.
So let's get into some. Let's do some start sits here and kind of work our way down in here. Lynn Dorfins was kind of still with Arizona, but who would you prefer this week in half PPR? Tyler Algier versus the Arizona Cardinals, or Devin Singletary versus the Cincinnati Bengals? Again, it looks like Dameon Pierce is not going to play, so Singletary is probably back in the same role that he was last week as the Texans starter. But Algier apparently is the Falcons starter right now. Really annoying for Bijan Robinson managers out there, but this is definitely an interesting question. I think I would take Algier. That's my gut reaction. A slightly better matchup. I think the volume might be similar. I think I'll take Algier.
I have Algier 0.1 points projected more than Devin Singletary. Singletary kind of, he got the lion's share of the touches in the backfield, but Houston can't really run. They do have a better matchup this week against Cincinnati. They're 11th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs. Algier has the better matchup, though. Arizona's 29th in that metric. And the one caveat I said, and I mentioned this on the pod with Daigle, is that at some point, Arthur Smith is going to get tired of answering questions about why he doesn't use Bijan Robinson, unless he is that stubborn, because he looks miserable explaining his reasoning, his convoluted reasoning.
It's not very good reasoning, but
for not utilizing Bijan more in those press conferences. So I think at some point the press might wear him down, and he might actually give Bijan the lion's share of the touches. I don't know if that's going to be this week. I do have Bijan higher because he's a better player than Algier, but this is a pretty good matchup for Algier, and your other option, Singletary, is not great. So I would do the same thing. I would go with Algier.
Algier for the win. Ideally, the Falcons management gets upset with the press conference questions and they just fire Arthur Smith. I think that's the most ideal situation for everybody.
He's having enough success that it's really going to take some losses here to pile up. I mean, what are the Falcons now?
I think they're 4-5.
Yeah, I mean they're good enough that he's not on the hot seat right now, unfortunately.
If they lose to Arizona this week and they get the Falcons and the Jets the next 2 weeks after that, oh man. Like if they start losing these games, their schedule is so soft. There's really nothing that could stop them from being like 12-5 by the end of the year. And if they're under 500, I think that does it.
They have the Saints, Cardinals, Saints, Jets, Bucks, Panthers, Colts, Bears, Saints. So a lot of mediocre to bad teams there.
They could be 12-5. It's so weird, but that's where they could be. Yan Baggy in a redraft, he needs a flex in a half PPR league. It's either Tyler Lockett, Jerome Ford, or the Gus Bus, who has found the end zone, I think 17 times in the past 3 weeks, but lost work because of the Keaton Mitchell stuff, and they were just blowing out. I forget who they played last week already. Blowout win. This is a tough one though. Seattle, that's who it was. So speaking of Seattle, I think I take Tyler Lockett out of this group.
You'd pick Lockett?
Yes. I'm not in love with either one of the two running back options. I feel like they're just such like meh that like Lockett and his usage on a weekly basis seems to be a higher ceiling and a safe floor.
I do have Lockett higher in the projections. I do think that Gus probably provides a higher floor. Lockett does have a very nice matchup against Washington. I think this could be a high scoring game. And, he's known for his random 2-touchdown monster games here and there. But you look at Edwards' game log, last 3 weeks, 64 yards, a touchdown, plus 80 yards receiving against Detroit. That's actually a bad matchup against Detroit. 80 yards, 3 touchdowns, plus 14 yards receiving against Arizona. Good matchup against Arizona. And then just 5 for 52 with 2 touchdowns last week against Seattle. So, I mean, he's got 6 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Like, you got a good chance at that. I don't think that the Keaton Mitchell thing affects him so much. I mean, he did only have 5 carries last week. But I think the Keaton Mitchell, he's threatening Justice Hill. I think Gus's role is Gus's role. And in a game that should be more competitive than the Seattle game against Cleveland, Cleveland's got a good defense, but I think there's a higher floor with Gus and probably a higher ceiling with Lockett, but Gus has a pretty good ceiling, as we've seen last 2 weeks.
I will also add that Keaton Mitchell came up with a hamstring injury yesterday, which he was limited in practice. So maybe that doesn't prevent him from playing this week, but that is something worth monitoring if you are a Gus Edwards, if you are considering starting Gus Edwards this week and worry about Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah, not just if somebody comes down with a hamstring injury in practice, they'll list him as limited. And then on Friday is the key day. Like if he's limited again, then it's bothering him. If he's a DNP, then he's probably not going to play.
Yep.
If he's full, then he's obviously probably going to play.
But I'll play Tyler Lockett. I think Lockett's the play here. All right, Lynn Dorfin's asking in a same half PPR format, which stash do you like the most between Elijah Mitchell, Leonard Fournette, and Jamal Williams? So if you just need to put a backup running back on your bench, which one of these 3 do you like? And for me, it's Elijah Mitchell. I think it's kind of fairly easily Elijah Mitchell, just because we haven't seen it yet from Leonard Fournette. Like, I don't really know what his role is going to be, and does that role grow more over the next couple of weeks? It might take him a couple of weeks to get there, in which case that might be an issue, just stashing on your bench. You know what I'm saying? That was a really weird way of saying that. Jamal Williams, I think, is just Jamal Williams. Like, I don't think there's any upside there whatsoever. Elijah Mitchell, at least we've seen upside when Christian McCaffrey is injured.
I would say Jamal Williams I would just scratch him out. Just given what's going on with Taysom Hill, he just is basically the goal line back for the Saints. So if something were to happen to Kamara, yes, Jamal Williams probably gets into a 10 carry role, but is he even getting the goal line, carries at all? So that just sort of knocks him out.
And I think Kendrick gets worked in a little bit too. If Kamara were to get hurt, I think Kendrick would get worked in.
He's been in and out of lineup with injury, right. But yeah. So it's down to Mitchell and Fournette. I think Mitchell is the better player at this point in their careers. But I think Fournette does have some weekly flex appeal if it takes over the RB2 job from Latavius Murray, because that's also going to involve the goal line job very likely. Fournette's also a pretty good pass catching back. I think James Cook is like more vulnerable in terms of his touches. He is obviously more vulnerable than CMC.
Than Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah. Well, way to go out on a limb there, Paulsen. No, I just think that Fournette probably has a better chance at a significant week-to-week role without an injury. So that's something to keep in mind. If you just want pure upside, then probably Mitchell. But I think Fournette, like, let's say both CMC and James Cook are injured.
I'm taking Mitchell.
You're taking Mitchell because of the San Francisco offense, probably, and Josh Allen vulturing goal line carries and stuff. But I don't think it's you think about how I would rank them if they had similar matchups and they were both RB1s. I don't think it'd be that big a difference. So depends on if you want some flex appeal with Fournette, I think you might go with that. If you just want pure upside, then Eli Mitchell.
Boom. That was a fantastic summary, I think. Trick or Trey hit us with a $2 super chat, which I got the message up here, but wanted to highlight the super chat. So thank you for that. He's asking, who can I trust the most out of Kenneth Walker or Bijan Robinson? From Walker missing practice one day, then fully practicing the next, then it leads to 2 straight dud weeks for his managers. So that's the issue with Kenneth Walker. And then the issue with Bijan is Arthur Smith. So who are you trusting more out of these two running backs? I guess maybe we can go from this week's perspective and then maybe a little bit more rest of season as well too.
So I'd like to put dud games into context for Walker, and he went up against Cleveland in week 8 and then Baltimore in week 9. So just 2 really bad matchups for him. And he's done with his bad matchups until week 15, really. I mean, he does have San Francisco a couple times, but they're 15th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs. Washington this week, I think I have them ranked pretty similar. Bijan at 11, Walker at 15. Bijan's matchup does indicate, I just feel like they're going to have to do something with Bijan, but
they don't have to, but
I think it does kind of come down to Kenneth Walker's health for me. So if he's full today, I feel pretty good about his matchup against Washington. He'll probably move up in the rankings. I think that it's not so much he's playing poorly. He had 8.25 yards per carry against Cleveland, but he only got 8 carries, 70 total yards. So that is kind of a dud week, but it's actually not that bad of a week if you just, didn't get a touchdown. But you're looking for something with him. You're looking for a touchdown. You're looking for 100 yards, total yards. I think he might get it this week against Washington.
I would trust Kenneth Walker more this week too. And I would like to say that I would like to trust Bijan more rest of season, especially if we think that Arthur Smith could get the boot at some point, maybe this month, maybe. But I mean, if the Falcons, like we just pointed out a little bit earlier, like their schedule is super soft for the remainder of the year. So if they start winning games, then there's no reason for Arthur Smith to be fired. And there's no real reason for Arthur Smith to change what he's doing, unless the reason why they're winning games is all of a sudden now he starts using Bijan Robinson like he did at the start of the year. But Ken Walker has also been phenomenal. Zach Charbonnet really hasn't been an issue outside of the past 2 weeks, but when you apply some context of the injuries and bad matchups, I think it makes a little bit more sense. And I do agree that I think Kenneth Walker is going to get back to where he was at the beginning of the year. So I would take Walker rest of season and this week over Bijan.
And Walker was full yesterday, so I would expect him to have a normal workload. But Charbonnet is going to be involved a little bit more than maybe early in the season, but I think you still see a lot of Walker this weekend.
Right. So Trey, thank you for the super chat. Hopefully we answered that question as much as we could to your satisfaction. Thank you. Let's see. Vince is asking, in a Dynasty 1 quarterback league, he traded Chase and Hollywood away for Bijan and T. Higgins. That's an interesting move. I don't know if I like it, but I don't like it.
Well, I think you have Hollywood and Higgins, and I would say if you look at those two, I'm a little higher on Marquise Brown right now. Not just like talent wise or anything, but with the return of Kyler and then Higgins with the injury, like he's injured. Like he's not playing this week, right? T. Higgins is out.
No, I don't. I'm pretty certain, like 99% he's out.
I think they ruled him out. So then you're looking at Chase and Bijan, and I would say Chase is ahead of Bijan. So I think he traded away the 2 better players in this trade.
Yeah, I think especially from a dynasty perspective, I would take Chase over Bijan, not only for rest of season, but for the remainder of their careers probably. And I think Hollywood and Higgins are close enough both rest of season and dynasty wise, that even though I think Higgins has more upside because he's a little bit younger, has the ability to change a situation in free agency and get away from Chase. So the upside is also higher there. But I think Hollywood is a good wide receiver 1 too. And if the Cardinals kind of move forward with him as their wide receiver 1 with Kyler Murray, that, like we said, we've already kind of seen that upside is like 17, 18 fantasy points per game. So I feel like they're more of a cancel out in this deal, and I would take Chase over Bijan. But I don't completely hate it, though. I just don't know if I would have traded away Chase.
Yeah, and he's saying it's a wide receiver loaded roster. So if he's stacked at receiver and is okay and can take this hit and upgrade your running back position, then it makes sense.
Sure.
I'm just looking at it from a redraft standpoint, and it's tough with Higgins injured right now.
Joe is asking, who would you rather have rest of season? I'm assuming that's Christian Kirk or Calvin Ridley. And I would take Christian Kirk.
Yes.
Do we need to give an explanation for that? I was trying to think.
he's been better. I mean, Ridley has been really spotty. Kirk has been a lot more consistent for them. Zay Jones is still out. It looks like he's not going to play this week. So,
right.
This is actually a week though that Ridley could have a good game. I guess he does significantly better against teams that play a high amount of zone, and San Francisco's up there in terms of their zone, 65% zone, which is pretty high. So I am looking for Ridley to have a better. I want to use him in some DFS lineups, Ridley. Nice. But I think rest of the season, Kirk has been consistent game to game.
Yep. Christian Kirk. Kyle, what's up? Most feel good about Lockett this week. Is Phil? What's your opinion on him and as to why his bust percentage is set so high when it feels like a boom week for him? So
what does he mean by his bust percentage? I don't know.
I wonder if he's looking at maybe because on ESPN, whenever you look at the player profile, it kind of says for this week, like he has this percentage of bust, this percentage of boom, and more likely than not, he's in between. So I'm wondering if his bust percentage is kind of high in there. Plus, I guess maybe with more of the nature of who he is as a player and that Seahawks offense and the way Gino's been playing, that he is a little bit more susceptible to like 3 for 30 games.
Yeah.
I
mean, he's always been very like
up and down.
Yeah. His coefficient of CV, coefficient of
variation
has always been. I used to do consistency metrics for these guys, and he was always up there because he has these giant weeks that win you weeks, and then he has those 3 for 30s or 2 for 20s. I think this week though, it's such a good matchup. He's also appears the best matchup they do move him around quite a bit, but he lines up on the right side. He's going to see a lot of Carrington Valentine that's the Packers. He's going to see a lot of Emmanuel Forbes, who's giving up, I think, the second most fantasy points per route covered in the entire league. But I mean, the whole Washington secondary is really rough, and now they lost their pass rush.
Right.
So, I think it's going to be a big game for Geno Smith and the entire passing attack. Now, they have 3 guys that you can start: DK, Lockett, and JSN. One's probably not going to get you there. Like 2 out of the 3 are going to have good games, and the other one's going to be like 5 for 50 maybe. But they're a good bet this week.
Yep.
All 3 of them.
I pulled up Lockett's player profile on ESPN. And it says that he's projected for 13.5 PPR points, 17% chance of boom, which they define as greater than 17, basically, but a 27% chance to bust, which they define as less than 5. So I think I disagree with that. And if you look at Tyler Lockett's game log too, for the past few weeks, he's kind of ping-ponged week to week. And this week would be the boom week if he follows his ping pong trend of a 3 or 4 game sample size from the last 4 weeks. Anything we could do to find these edges, right?
For sure.
Joe says, afternoon. What's up, Joe? Chris is in a 10-team, 1-quarterback Dynasty League. He's rebuilding, trying to get younger. Thoughts on trading away Saquon Barkley for Devon Achane? He's actually thinking of offering Barkley and a third for Devon Achane. Very interesting deal. I actually just posted a updated top 25 running back rankings today on DLF for Dynasty. They weren't my personal rankings, but they're just kind of like a scoring system that I use that kind of weights production, age, and current ADP. And Achane came out ahead of Saquon Barkley, mainly because of the fact that he's averaging like 25 points per game. But even whenever I was like messing around with his numbers, I was like, what if he averaged 15 points per game, or, somewhere around in there closer to where Saquon is? Then he was still ahead of Saquon because he's 5 years younger, 4 or 5 years younger. So I don't hate moving Saquon for Devon Achane. Like Achane has massive upside, especially in that Dolphins offense, and the way that Mike McDaniel can just scheme him for a touchdown. It seems like every single time he touches the ball. But Barkley is the tried and true guy. He is, I think, leading the NFL in touches per game, definitely in carries per game, and is also a top 10 running back. So I feel like this is one of those moves where I probably wouldn't trade, but I wouldn't make this move if on either side. Like I'd probably just keep whoever I had already. It just doesn't seem like there's enough incentive one way or another, especially at running back, because there's just so much can happen. Where it's just like one running back for another, and the third doesn't move the needle for me at all. I don't know if you see this differently. If you have better thoughts on Achane or Barkley.
Well, I was just looking at DLF's composite rankings, and they've got Barkley at 8 and Achane at 9. Achane 4 years younger. So if he's trying to get younger, then this makes sense. And I think Achane is in such a great situation. If you just look at their environments compared to each other, Barkley's on the Giants. This season has gone sideways. It was supposed to be a better offense. Daniel Jones looked worse. And they're locked in with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Achane, I just pulled up Raheem Mostert's contract to just see like if he's going to be out of the way next year, and he's under contract, age 32 for 2024, but there's an potential out with $650,000 dead cap, so they can move on from Mostert if they just wanted to kind of hand the keys to Achane. Now, I don't think he's going to be a 25 touch back, but he doesn't need to be, I think, in this offense. It's just such a great environment for him. I would, if you want to get younger, then I would go ahead and do this. And Barkley is 26, so he's still got probably, I don't know how you look at this in Dynasty, but he probably has 2 to 3, perhaps 2 to 4 years of Saquon Barkley type production, but you get close to that 29-30 wall, and the guys start to fade. So clock's kind of ticking on him.
Right. Yep. I just pulled up the trade analyzer because I was interested in who it would recommend moving Saquon for if you're looking at a different position, and especially at wide receiver if you're rebuilding. It spits out names like Drake London and JSN, and maybe you can buy low on Chris Olave or somebody like that who's kind of underperforming, or maybe go out and buy T. Higgins and you trade Saquon for Olave plus or T. Higgins plus. I feel like those might be better moves, especially if you're rebuilding, than going to buy Devon Achane. So that could be something that you could look to do instead. But yeah. Blue Knockout Pearson is asking Dotson or Tyler Boyd in the flex this week in a standard league. Which I was going to say, I don't know if that matters too much for wide receivers, but I think Dotson has a better Boyd is seen more as a PPR kind of guy because he can rack up the receptions. But if Dotson's going to have more receiving yards, that's better and maybe a higher touchdown percentage.
Yeah, he scored a lot of touchdowns last year. He's starting to catch fire this year. We do have Curtis Samuel back, which might throw a little wrench into his production, but I think it's tied to Samuel's injury. But he's also just seen more targets. Like, I don't think it's necessarily because Samuel was out that Dotson is doing well. It's a better matchup. And I think people immediately turn to Tyler Boyd whenever there's an injury to Jamar Chase or to T. Higgins. And yes, I think his upside is a little higher this week, but it was actually Trenton Irwin who had the big game last time that T. Higgins was out. So I've got Trenton Irwin at 41. I've got Boyd. This is half PPR, but they're about the same, I'm sure, in standard. 34 for Boyd, and then I've got Dotson at 28. And I think the fact that it's standard probably boosts Dotson. I think there's going to be some touchdowns in that Washington-Seattle game.
Yep. I think it's Dotson pretty easily because it's standard, because I think he has a better chance of, like I kind of said when I was introing these two players, of he has a better chance of getting more yards and a better chance of scoring a touchdown as well too. And I just pulled up Tyler Boyd splits without Jamar Chase, just to give you an example. He averages 8 points per game with Chase since 2021. He averages 10 points per game with Chase since 2021 and averages only 8 points per game without him in a 4-game sample size. T. Higgins, he averages 10 points per game with T. Higgins, 10 points per game without T. Higgins. So it seems like the beneficiary of one of those two guys being out is the other one, not so much Boyd.
Well, also Trent Irwin. I mean, he had I think 6 for 80 in the game that Higgins missed. Not that anybody's asking about Trenton Irwin, but I'm just pointing him out as a
$3,000 on DraftKings.
8 catches for 60 yards on 10 targets, week 5 with Higgins out. So Higgins' workload went to him, and I think Boyd did okay, but I'm not at the point anymore where he's going to explode anytime one of these guys is out. He had 6 catches for 39 yards on 7 targets.
Mm-hmm.
And he had 7 targets in week 6. He had 7 targets in week 4. He had 9 targets in week 3. So his role didn't change a whole lot. His snaps actually declined from week 4, 91%, down to 73% with Higgins out. So
Jahan Dotson. All right, we got some super chats in here. Mike, I'm sorry. I don't know how I just now saw this. You sent this a few minutes ago. So I apologize for not getting right to it. But thank you for the $2 super chat. Mike needs 2 guys in a half PPR to start this week between Rachaad White. I'm trying to think. Is that Jameson Williams?
I would say Javonte, I'm sure.
Javonte Williams. There we go. There's too many J. Willies. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. So we need 2 of these guys in a half PPR league. I think Rachaad White, with what he's been doing in recent weeks, is probably, I don't want to say locked as one of them, but I think that he is one of the answers. And I'm trying to buy you some time to look up these names.
I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Okay, I don't know who my second name is.
Yeah, when I first saw this, I was thinking probably, since this is half PPR, the 2 running backs give you the highest floor, and they also give you some upside, and they are ranked 18 and 19 in my flex rankings. Olave's 32, and Wilson is at 29. So you do have some upside with the receivers, but you also have the really low floor. Whereas with Javonte and White, you're guaranteed 15 touches probably from both of them. Maybe more. You might be into the 20 touch area, and then if rushing touchdowns obviously give you some upside as well. I would go with White and Javonte.
I don't think I necessarily disagree with you on choosing the 2 running backs. I think if I were to choose a wide receiver, I would also agree with you. And Garrett Wilson was my pick over Olave. There's just betterness happening with Wilson right now than Olave, even though Olave continues to be the biggest buy right now because of his workload. The usage that he's getting in terms of target share and air yard share and everything, it's just hasn't come together. Garrett Wilson is at least meshing a little bit more with.
Well, he's seeing like 10 plus targets every game, and then so that means with Zach Wilson, he's getting like 8 catchable targets each game, and that's not bad.
But yeah, I like Rachaad White. I like Javonte Williams as well too. Sorry for getting to that a little bit later than we usually do, but thank you for the super chat. Here for the memes though, hit us with a $5 super chat again every single week. Here for the memes is here for us. We appreciate you, man. He asked last week about Higgins' dynasty value. said that his buddy isn't budging on that. He wants a 24 first, 25 second, and Christian Watson for T. Higgins. Is that too much, or is that good dynasty value for you? And to be honest with you, I would take T. Higgins. I think it's a little bit too much for market value of where T. Higgins is now, especially with a new injury and the fact that he's not playing on Sunday. I've already talked to a couple like redraft people, and they're like ready to cut him in redraft. They're like, I'm so sick of T. Higgins right now. So it does feel higher than what you should probably, or what I would like to pay this at this time for T. Higgins. But when T. Higgins is fully healthy, this is lower than what I would pay for T. Higgins, because I'm kind of out on Christian Watson at this point. Maybe your opinion changes as a Packers fan, but I'm pretty done with Christian Watson. So I view him as another. This is a first and 2 seconds for me for T. Higgins, and I'll take T. Higgins.
I mean, I just to speak on Watson, I don't think that the problem is necessarily Christian Watson. I think his talent as a route runner is not necessarily going to differentiate him from Romeo Doubs or Jaden Reed in the offense. And just, we can see that they just spread the ball around. Jordan Love actually told the broadcasting crew last week that when he has like a go-to moment and needs a catch, he goes to Romeo Doubs. That's who he's looking for. So that's not a great sign for Christian Watson, just like in the short term. But I don't think he's necessarily the problem. Like we saw what he did with Rodgers last year during that stretch. Like he's fully capable.
It's wonderful to play with a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah. And we have not yet decided if Jordan Love is that.
Still
right
remains
now,
to be seen.
If you mix the 8 ball right now, it says signs pointing to no. But we'll see. This, I just looked at the DLF rankings again with this one. Watson at they're both 24. Watson at wide receiver 30, Higgins at wide receiver 13. So pretty significant difference there dynasty wise, which makes sense.
And I think that shows the disparity when T. Higgins is healthy and producing well. Like how T. Higgins has over the past couple of years, and not just this random injury riddled season. So that's where I think that this might be a little bit expensive given Higgins's value currently today, but I don't think it's expensive once we get to like the off season and we're looking ahead and T. Higgins is nobody's scoring points and T. Higgins is healthy and everything is great. So I would pay this for T. Higgins. Here for the memes also hit us with a $2 super chat asking for a price check on Brandon Aiyuk in Dynasty. And Aiyuk is actually has been one of my favorite wide receivers to buy in Dynasty over the past couple of months because his price was actually still moderately low as like a mid to back end wide receiver 2, even through September and October, like after his kind of breakout games where he's continuing to solidify himself as the wide receiver 1 in San Francisco. And so I think that he is just in a fantastic spot to succeed in San Fran. And then they picked up his 5th-year option, so he'll be there again next year. And then if he has the opportunity to test the free agent market, I think then that would be an opportunity that he changes his situation. While, yes, he could go to a worse offense or, maybe a downgrade at quarterback or anything like that, but he also could hit an upgraded quarterback or an upgrade in the sense that he is now being more of the wide receiver 1 in a target hog sense, because while he's the wide receiver 1 right now, I think in San Fran, he's still only getting like 120 to 130 targets on a total season. And I think that if he has the ability to see 150, 160, I've kind of been comping him to like Stephon Diggs when he left Minnesota. That could happen to Brandon Aiyuk. And that's why I've been loving to buy into him. If I can get him for 1 first, love that. If I can get him for a 1st and 2nd, love that. I would pay that exact same deal you just paid for T. Higgins for Brandon Aiyuk as well too. A 1st, 2nd, and Christian Watson.
Wide receiver 16 at DLF, maybe a little low. He's 25 years old. It's funny to see like Jackson Smith and Jigba ahead of him when we know, and I know he's 4 years younger, but we know Aiyuk's good. Like I trust Matt Harmon's charting over at Reception Perception, like just buying into the guys that are kind of flying under the radar, but are really good route runners and can get open. He's also, I know you don't like these ESPN open scores because they have Tyreek Hill too low, but he is the number 1 open. He has a 99
Oh, I
open
love him now.
score.
It's fantastic.
And he's the third highest rated receiver in those metrics behind AJ Brown and CD Lamb when you take into account catch and yak. So just really a bright future for Brandon Aiyuk.
Speaking to, so I mentioned the updated running back rankings that just dropped today on DLF. I did wide receivers that dropped a couple days ago. Aiyuk was wide receiver 13 in that video for Dynasty. When you account for current production and age and value, Aiyuk was 13, basically a wide receiver 1. And then Craig hit us with a $5 super chat as well too. Craig, thank you so much. He's asking if he should try to trade Jaylen Waddle or should he keep him? He has Aiyuk, Diggs, Nico, and Chase. He said he could package Gabe Davis and Nico as well too. So just a whole bunch of what could he kind of do with this wide receiver room? Or sorry, package Jaylen Waddle. I think I said Jaylen Warren. Package Jaylen Waddle, or should I keep him? So a whole bunch of wide receivers here. What do we kind of do with this wide receiver room? And Craig, if you're still in the chat, is this Dynasty or redraft? Would definitely help us a lot in terms of the direction that we're heading in here. Hopefully you're still in the chat. You've been waiting for us to answer for the super chat. But yeah, Dynasty or redraft would also be greatly. Redraft. PPR redraft. Okay. Thank you, Craig. So in a redraft league, should you try to package Jaylen Waddle? He also has Aiyuk, Diggs, Nico, and Jamar Chase. What would you be looking to do with Waddle in redraft, I think, is the main question.
I think the issue with, and I guess that was when I was reading the question, I was thinking it from a dynasty standpoint, is that he's just always going to be the number 2 option in that offense, even though he is wide receiver 7 in DLF's dynasty rankings. I mean, I don't think there's another Tyreek Hill's at 9 because he's 5 years older. So you're just kind of waiting for Tyreek Hill to retire, I guess, if you're a dynasty. He's wide receiver 24 this year, which is certainly a disappointing situation right now for those that, drafted him in the top 10 or 12, just thinking that with Gesicki gone, that would be enough to support both Hill and Waddle as top 10 receivers. I still rank him high every week because he has that upside, but
right.
So with Aiyuk, Diggs, Nico, and Chase, you're really stacked. You don't need Waddle. You could package Gabe Davis and Nico as well. I only like, I was just thinking about Gabe Davis. I have him in Scott Fishbowl, and I have to start him every week, and that's fine. That's the situation you need to be in, and just deal with his 0-point games or 4-point games, and then you get your 30-point game out of him.
Yep.
So he's not real useful in leagues where you're only starting 3 receivers max, but in a big format where other players your competitors are also forced to start these kind of wacky starts that are going to have some bad games, then you like to have Gabe. So if he's not really useful for you at all. So if you could package Gabe with another receiver, either Waddle or Nico, and maybe upgrade at another position, or maybe upgrade your receiver position further, that's fine. I think Nico and Waddle are actually, and it doesn't seem that way. I'm sure name recognition will get you a lot more with Waddle than Nico, but they're pretty close in value. I still have Waddle in the top 10, but just because Justin Jefferson's hurt, Devontae Adams is dealing with a quarterback change, so Nico's down at 18, but they're not too far apart, and certainly from a fantasy points per game standpoint, Collins is ahead. Right. Collins does have the calf injury, so that's the one sort of caveat with him. I think you're going to get more with Waddle, I would guess. So, and actually from a redraft standpoint, it probably pays to keep Collins.
I would love to see, can you turn Jaylen Waddle into Devonta Smith? I wonder if that's a move that you can kind of do. Even if you've got to package Gabe Davis with them, it might hurt this week because Smith's on bye. Although Waddle's also on bye, so it doesn't hurt you too much. But with Dallas Goedert's injury, we saw what Devonta Smith was able to do last year at the second half of the year, spurred on greatly by Dallas Goedert missing 4 games last year, or 5 games. But his splits with and without Goddard last year were astronomical. Like Devonta Smith was averaging 18 fantasy points per game. So if you can turn Waddle into Devonta Smith, like if you look production wise, there's really not that big of a difference between the two right now, production wise. But you're getting the upside of Devonta Smith without Dallas Goedert. And I'm wondering if that is a move that you can make right now. I would also look at, I mean, I would love to go up and get like Amon-Ra St. Brown or something like that. Like if you can package Waddle and Nico and just go get Amon-Ra, that would be insane on some name recognition, but also some production from Nico. Those are the moves that I'd be looking to make with Waddle. Is I think you use the name recognition like you were mentioning, Paulsen, and just try to see if you can tier up to a guy that has either a better situation right now or is just a known much safer but still similar upside commodity wide receiver like an Amon-Ra St. Brown or like a Keenan Allen or somebody like that. You know, I don't know how easily it would be to get up into that tier, but that's what I would ideally like to be doing with them. Hopefully that helped you out, Craig. If you have any, like, if you have like actual specific trade questions, definitely drop them down either in the replay of this too, or if you have any other ones in here too, we can get to them. Hopefully get to them maybe today. Cameron hit us with a $10 super chat. Cameron, thank you so much. So in a Dynasty League, Superflex 12 team, start 11 PPR rebuild Dynasty League. He's the Burrow Chase stack owners team went bad. He has their first, and they offered me Burrow and Chase for Aiyuk, Achane, Rice, their first, a late first, and a 2025 first. Oh my goodness. It would give him Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Oh man. What is that team's record right now? Like, are they 101, 102 right now? And then if they sell Burrow and Chase, that just solidifies the fact that they're there? Or are they like 106 right now? And even with a couple of, even as they start going downhill with a couple of losses, that only really taps out to like 103, 104. That's the first question I have to really gauge what their value of their first.
I would guess it's not middle of the first right now if they're, because they would still be trying to compete. Oh yeah, I guess it is 106. They're just giving up.
That was my fear, is that they were just like, you know what? They called it quits too late. It's too late to start doing that. Okay.
But aren't they just close to the playoffs, this team?
Yeah, but maybe there's some other players or circumstances where they're just kind of like, you know what? We're throwing in the towel.
I love you Dynasty guys. Just give up on the season. You're sitting in the 6th spot.
Well,
7th spot.
I think that's. I think there are definitely teams that are 6 and 7 that I think shouldn't be there, like the Pittsburgh Steelers of the world in Dynasty leagues. I think that they should throw in the towel, and they're just kind of living a dream that isn't really reality. But there are other Dynasty teams I think where they're there, especially when you got Burrow and Chase. That, you know, it might not be the worst thing in the world to go win, especially if you don't have your own first. That just incentivizes you more to win. A lot of words as I'm trying to digest what this trade is. So I'm trying to. Aiyuk, their first back, and another first is equivalent to, they're 2 and 7, but draft ranking is off max points 4, and they're sitting at 106. Okay. Well, then that kind of makes sense then. They're really bad at start-sit decisions. Chase is equal to Aiyuk, Rice. No, Aiyuk and 2 firsts is Jamar Chase, I think. And then I would take Burrow pretty easily over Achane, Rice in there and another first. I would do this deal. Yeah, I'm doing this. I'm doing this deal. It's gonna seem like a lot, but bro, you got Burrow and Chase. This is one of those ways where it might sound counterintuitive to sell your first round picks in a rebuild, but when you can get stud assets like this and I view this at a discount as well too. This is one of the ways that it moves away the risk of drafting the wrong players in the first round with those picks, which then slows down your rebuild because then you got to basically try and do it all over again and pick the right players now. And this is something that can actually speed up your rebuild by moving away first for just elite players. I would take Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. This is a big boy deal for sure, but I would take Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I actually really like this. Do you have any input on it, or do we just?
No, this is way too convoluted for my redraft brain. I don't have to think about things like this. This is too much.
This is why Dynasty.
I don't want to give anybody any advice as a novice Dynasty player.
Burrow and Chase for me. Do it, Cameron. Do it. Mahomes, Burrow, and Jamar Chase on one roster. Oh my goodness, dude. I love it. All right. Unless we have any other super chats that are Dynasty related, I think we're just going to move forward now because we're running out of time a little bit. We're going to hit on as many start-sit questions as we possibly can now. We're going to put Paulsen to work here and try to help you guys, as many people out as possible. So if you have any Dynasty questions and they don't get answered, throw them into the replay, the comment section of the replay of this. I will answer every single one of those in as much depth as I possibly can. What if one of the picks is Marvin Harrison Jr. or Penix? I can't speak to Michael Penix. I'm honestly not even sure that he's a first round pick. I don't think that first can turn into Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's currently 1.06. He needs to lose hard. But even if it
not
is
just losing, he's scoring too much.
Yeah.
He's at 6 spot. He's at the 106 because he's got too many points. So how do you get down? You're not going to get down to 101.
And if you're giving him Aiyuk and Achane and Rice, like, yes, he moves points off his roster by adding in Burrow and Chase. But you're putting points back on, especially when Achane comes back. If Achane comes back and he's putting up and doing what he just did, like that's going to hurt value, like hurt the value of this trade even more because it's going to move Achane. I'm talking too much on this deal. I don't think he's going to get to Marvin Harrison Jr.
I see Mad Pulls asking a question. Are the rankings on 4for4 my rankings? Yes, they are. The projections, I do all the projections. And then I also do the rest of season rankings that are on the site.
Boom. Josh is in Scott Fishbowl. Would you rather start Tyler Boyd or Devin Singletary this week?
I don't know. Do I have my Scott Fishbowl? I do have Scott Fishbowl scoring. Like that's so convoluted that the scoring, so it's hard for me to answer.
I don't even really bake the scoring into there. I just kind of hope that it works. And I'm just like,
oh, you don't even think about the actual.
I can't. It's too much to think about first downs and half PPR, and it's just,
well, I project all that. So if you create your league on 4for4, you'll at least get my the projections. Sometimes the projections will say, oh, it's clear when it's not so clear to your brain. So Tyler, hold on a second here. I got my Tyler Boyd.
I think I would start Devin Singletary.
I'm at 89. Devin Singletary because his points per carry, I think, in that format. I've got Devin Singletary at 72. Right. 72. Boyd at 89. So yeah, I would go Devin Singletary just for the workload.
Holy super chats. Steven with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. He said he's nervous about Nico. Should he pick up Noah Brown and start Noah Brown over Nico, assuming that Nico is out? Or would you still start Noah Brown even if Nico is playing?
I would start Nico Collins Robert Woods is back, I think, too. So keep an eye on that. It looks like Nico's not spotted at practice on Friday. So yeah, starting to get a little worried about him. That certainly, if he's out, that certainly helps both Robert Woods and Noah Brown. And I would say, given Noah Brown's last game, then he certainly has more upside to me than Robert Woods.
Brown has seen, I think, 5+ targets in each of his last 4 games. Now they were without Robert Woods, like you said, but if you're without Nico now, it's kind of a similar situation. They're missing somebody, and then Noah Brown's going to have to step up into that role. So yeah, I think Noah's a great pickup if/when Nico's out. If Nico's playing, though, I think you play Nico.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Steven, for the super chat. RS with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. In a Dynasty League, trade Jonathan Taylor for the 2024 1.02 and Devonta Smith. I was going to ask if this is super flex or one quarterback, because that would determine who the 102 is, but I don't think it matters, because I think JT and Devonta Smith already are very similar. So then just having the 1.02, even if it's a one quarterback league, the 1.02 next year is going to be Igbuka or Malik Neighbors or Brock Bowers, maybe potentially. Like that asset is still very good in a one quarterback league. If it's a super flex league, you just got Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr. So give me the 1.02 and Devonta Smith in this.
What would you have to add to the 102? What type of player to get the 101 and get Marvin Harrison Jr.? If it's not a super flex league,
it honestly might be a late first.
So 102 plus a late first
for Mark
would get you 101.
Yeah,
that seems worth it, right? I don't know.
I mean, dude, Marvin Harrison Jr. right now is going to come out as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver, and it's going to be insane. His value's off the charts.
He's so good.
He is insanely good. As someone who watched him destroy my Penn State Nittany Lions, he's very good. But I would do this. I would trade JT for the 102 and Devonta Smith, and then trade another first with that 102 and go get 101. Michael Kane with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Michael. 12-team Dynasty League with 6 keepers and full PPR. He's considering trading Drake London and a second-round pick for Devonta Smith. So that second-round pick, because it's a keeper league, it's not like a second rookie-round pick. It's like the 8th-round pick in a redraft, right? That's how everybody has 6 keepers, and the second round is the 8th round. And so Drake London and an 8th round-ish redraft player, or Devonta Smith. And I think I make that deal too, because I think the hope is that Drake London can produce like Devonta Smith. They're producing pretty similarly right now, but I think Devonta Smith is in a better situation, and you get the upside of the second half without Dallas Goedert as well too. And an 8th round redraft pick is such a dice roll anyway. I think I would do this deal. I feel like you might be more well versed in a keeper league format like that. Like if you have a better idea who
I am in a really long running keeper league. It's been around since like Y2K. So yeah, I think you're just looking short term, next 2 or 3 years. Devonta is just he's in a similar situation as Waddle, where he's just kind of stuck behind AJ Brown. And when AJ Brown's getting 125 yards per game, it's like there's not much left over for Smith. I think he's a really good player. I think they're both good players. Devonta Smith's a really good route runner. Better offense, better just franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Are they about the same age, or is London a year or 2 younger?
London would be a year younger. He might even be 2 years younger, because he was an early declare, and Devonta Smith was a 4th year.
22 and 24. Yeah.
Boom. 2 years.
Yeah, you're getting a little bit younger, but I think you're also buying into this Atlanta franchise, which is dangerous right now. We don't know what's going on with Arthur Smith and quarterback situation. It's bad.
An 8th round pick in redraft back in August were players like Michael Thomas, Khalil Herbert, Dalvin Cook, Sky Moore, Elijah Moore. Now DeAndre Swift was in the 8th round, but I feel like that's kind of an outlier.
I think Khalil Herbert was a good pick there. It's just an injury kind of derailed him. But I would probably do this to get out of London and get into Smith.
Yeah, I take.
Unless you think like there's, right on the short term, they're gonna, get a new quarterback and a new coach.
Hopefully, unless they're 12-5 by the end of the year. Yeah, then.
Yeah, that's true.
Take Devonta Smith, Michael. Thank you for the super chat. Jeff with a $5 super chat as well too. He says, "Hello, music fans and Hayes." He needs 2 players in a half PPR league between Calvin Ridley, Jerome Ford, Zay Flowers, and Christian Watson. So I'm already locking in Calvin Ridley. Boom, 1.
He took, and then he would normally not be the easy one because he's really had an up and down season. But I did mention earlier that he plays better, produces more against zone, and he'll face a lot of zone against the 49ers this week.
And
so I am
a lot
looking
better than Christian Watson.
And it's a breakout. Yeah, you're right. And Zay Flowers is kind of tailed off here. He's not a big red zone guy. He's kind of a between the 20s guy. He's at 73 in the flex rankings. Jerome Ford just terrifies me. But he's at 64. Too. He's at 64 because of, he's likely to see 12 plus 13 plus touches. So he has some sort of floor. And then Watson, I think he's not Christian he's not Christian Kirk, and he's not Christian McCaffrey. He's Christian Watson. He's down 95. So I think
it's Jerome Ford, Ridley and Ford.
I think Ford both have bad matchups. Ford has a floor. Flowers, we just don't know what they're going to need, how much they're going to need to throw against Cleveland. Plus, they're 3rd in adjusted fantasy points allowed to receivers. Plus, you have Odell Beckham kind of coming on right now, and Mark Andrews is really the wide receiver 1 in that offense as well. So I would probably go Ford just to get those 15 touches and hopefully he gets a touchdown.
Bateman's had a few catches.
Yeah, he's back healthy. Yeah, like what we're seeing is like Flowers with the hot start. It seems like it was due to injuries to Beckham and to Bateman. And now that everybody's healthy, they're not force feeding Flowers anymore, even though he's a good player. And they don't throw the ball enough to support 3 fantasy starters every week. Like Andrews is going to get his, and then one of these other receivers is going to get it, especially if they're running the ball like they are with Gus Edwards getting 6 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks.
Right. That was the last thing I was going to mention was if you believe that the Ravens are going to be winning the majority of this game, that's a bad that's bad for Zay Flowers. It's a bad game script, which you could also argue is a bad game script for Jerome Ford, but Jerome Ford at least has receiving upside. If he catches,
he will.
He had 5 last week.
Yep.
So if he's catching 3, 4, 5 passes, that's going to raise his floor and his ceiling as well too. If he can kind of amass 70 to 80, 90 total yards, 3, 4 receptions, that's double-digit fantasy points right there that Zay Flowers might not get if they're winning the majority of the game. But yeah, thank you, Jeff, for the $5 super chat. We're gonna throw out a last call for any super chats, and we're gonna. Do you have time for another? We're just gonna rampage.
Let's get 5 more minutes of
all right.
Start sits.
So I apologize to anybody that we've skipped over, but if you throw a super chat, then we will get to it immediately. But let's see, where were we? Jaden's asking Tank Dell, Debo, or Jahmyr Gibbs this week. Doesn't give a scoring system, but some interesting names here that we really haven't brought up. Tank Dell. We talked a little bit about Nico probably not playing, so I would imagine that he's the main benefactor of Nico not playing. With his upside that he has, he's a very interesting name. Gibbs probably gets David Montgomery back this week. Debo seems like he's going to play this week. But tell me why the answer isn't Tank Dell.
It's Tank Dell. It's Tank Dell. He is slightly ahead of Gibbs in the projections. I'm just looking at half PPR. If it's PPR, I would think he'd move further ahead. Tank Dell got a lot of confidence. I mean, he's a rookie, so he might have a bad game here or there. Gibbs probably gives you a 10-touch floor, but Tank Dell has massive upside, as we saw last week. And if Nico Collins is out, it's even higher. I had a CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, Nico stack.
Yeah, you did.
And I think I sent it to you, and you were really impressed. And I
wasn't.
I won $900 or $700 at Yahoo DFS.
I think the DraftKings Millie had Stroud, Tank, Nico, and Schultz.
Yeah,
I think that
Nico ended up being like the least valuable receiver because of his price and what he did, but he actually had a touchdown.
Yeah.
And if I'd gotten anything from, I think, Kamara and Mike Evans.
Yeah,
Mike Evans got tackled at the 1-inch line, and I would have made another grand, I think. But I try not to think about that.
You're just happy for the money that you won.
I'm happy with my whatever 900 it was.
KJ's asking a better spot start this week: Zach Charbonnet, Devin Singletary, Leonard Fournette, or Kenneth Gainwell. I think it's Devin Singletary.
Yeah, I think you got to go with the touch floor, even if it's ugly. And I would say second would be Charbonnet, and just hoping that his usage continues, because that is going to be I think a high scoring game. Seattle, Washington.
E Beats says, "What's up, 4 for 4? Who would you rather have on your bench? Keaton Mitchell, Kareem Hunt, Khalil Herbert, or?"
That's Alexander Madison.
Matt.
I saw that question. Madison. I was like, Madison. I'm like, who is he?
Choose two of these guys. So 2 bench running backs to stash for the second half of the year: Keaton Mitchell, Kareem Hunt, Khalil Herbert, Alexander Madison. I think Alexander Madison is one. Oh, crap. I feel like the second answer depends on your aversion to risk, because I feel like Keaton Mitchell is the home run swing out of these guys. Like, if he starts to be integrated into that offense at any somewhat of a consistent touch volume on a weekly basis, he is by far the best player out of this whole entire group. So he, like I talked about him in a video on DLF this week. I said that he's basically Devon Achane light. Like, his measurables are basically the same. The production that he had in college is pretty similar to Devon Achane, granted at very different schools and levels of competition. But that all plays into the fact that Keaton Mitchell is Devon Achane light. So if you go for that upside, and the opportunity cost to swing for that upside is 14 touch per game Kareem Hunt and a 12 touch per game Khalil Herbert, I don't necessarily hate going that route if you're just swinging for the fences and want somebody that could be a game breaker for you if he gets more work and integrated into his offense as we get into the fantasy playoffs. So Alexander Madison, Keaton Mitchell might be my answer for both of these.
I would say, you're getting 2 different players there too. You're getting like a high touch floor guy with Madison, who's going to see 16 to 20 touches per game and maybe get a touchdown for you. And then the other option is, or you have another more upside in your bench. I do just want to say that Khalil Herbert, I think people are sleeping on him. When you said that Keaton Mitchell is the best player of this group, I am not 100% in agreement. Khalil Herbert has number 8 PFF rushing grade. He has number 28 PFF receiving grade, number 7 pass blocking grade, which he was supposedly his weakness. He's the number 5 in yak per attempt. And he was also really good in a lot of these metrics last year. So it's like carrying over. And if you look at his games prior to the injury, yes, the first couple games he was splitting time. First 3 games he was splitting time. Against Denver, he had 18 carries for 103 yards, 4 catches for 19 yards and a touchdown. And then in his injury game against Washington, he had 10 carries for 76 yards. He's averaging 5.3 yards per carry. So I am really looking forward to getting him back in my keeper league, because I have like no running backs. I've been starting Chuba Hubbard the last 2 weeks, and I think people are like, "Oh, Herbert's just like this bench stashed throwaway guy right now," and he's not. He's full. He was full these last 3 practices. I'm surprised they didn't have him out there, and I think that when he comes back, it's not like a sure thing that he's going to just immediately take the RB1 role, but I think he's better than Donta Foreman and Roschon Johnson at this point. Roschon has not done anything to really threaten that RB1 job, which is the concern with Herbert. I think he was a really good middle round pick and just had his season derailed with this injury.
I don't disagree that Khalil Herbert is the best running back in that backfield, and I definitely don't disagree that Roschon hasn't done anything since coming back from injury to hurt Khalil Herbert. I do think Deonta Foreman has made a mark over the past couple of weeks that this could be maybe not a nasty 3-headed committee. Maybe it could be with Roschon, but it could be, kind of like how Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford are in the Bears backfield between Khalil Herbert and Deonta Foreman moving forward.
That's possible, but I think Khalil Herbert could be the 3-down back.
Yes.
I don't know if they're looking for that though.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like his pass blocking has improved. That was the big concern with him, is like his pass blocking. It's improved to the point where he is up there, top 10. So there's no reason to take him off the field unless they're trying to rotate guys.
Right. And that's something that Keaton Mitchell probably won't be able to get to, is being a 3-down back in that Ravens backfield.
Unless if there's an injury to Gus,
sure.
Now they're down bad.
But if Kareem Hunt, if Jerome Ford gets hurt, Kareem Hunt now is the huge. So you're taking Madison and Khalil Herbert?
I would take Madison and Khalil Herbert, but I understand the tantalizing nature of Keaton Mitchell. Maybe I got take lock on Khalil Herbert, but I think he's the RB1 in Chicago when healthy, and you can't say that about Mitchell.
I do agree with that. Open 24 hours, half PPR, start 1, Pierce, Warren, or Keaton Mitchell. And I don't think Dameon Pierce is going to play this week, so I think the answer is Jaylen Warren.
I would go Warren.
If Pierce does play, I think I still go Jaylen Warren.
I would go Warren, given what's going on in Houston. Yeah, they can't run the ball.
Let's see. Start 2 for Mile High Luke, James Conner, Luke Musgrave, Nico Collins, Marvin Mims. So you got to start 2 of those guys. And your answer might have been made for you because Nico might not play, and James Conner, at least as of my knowing currently, has not been activated yet.
At least as of my knowing currently.
Currently, he has not been activated yet. So you might be stuck playing Musgrave and Mims out of just necessity.
He's trending in the right direction to play, so I think they will probably play him. So I'm going to go Connor for sure in the 1 spot, and then
Musgrave.
Probably Musgrave, yeah, FFPC. We can't trust that Mims is going to see his role increase until we actually see it. I like to roster him, but I can't trust him right now. And Musgrave, at least in tight end premium, his value is boosted a little bit. And then it looks like Collins is not going to play, sadly. But we'll see.
Matt Poole says that you ranked Tank Dell over Kareem Hunt last week, but he went with the safer running back and lost. Never again. John Paulsen always wins.
No, that's not true. But yeah, I mean, sometimes the thing is with going with the receiver over the running back when they're ranked kind of close is that it's great when it works out, but then if it doesn't work out, and that's why always the caveat is like you might get a 2 for 15 from a receiver. You're probably not going to get that from a running back that's getting 10, 12 touches. So
right.
The floor, if you can deal with the floor and not come yell at me when it doesn't work out, and a player like Tank Dell has a bad game, which he did, I think 2 weeks prior, he had a bad game and then he had this amazing game. But so did Stroud. It was a weird game against Carolina. And that's why I went back to them in that pass funnel against the Bucks, because there's upside there. Anyway, if you can live with the bad, then go upside.
Tank Dell is now Gabe Davis plus, where it feels like his ceiling, he has that ability to ping pong, but I feel like his floor might be a little bit higher than Gabe Davis's moving forward. He's been over 20 or under 9 every single game this week or this year. And
He
there's been
has
no in
the
between.
number. He's got. I think he's better than Gabe Davis just as a player. He is the number 3
Yes.
open score in those ESPN rankings that
the
you
stupid ESPN
trust.
rankings that I hate unless they have Brandon Ayuk number 1. Then
He's
amazing.
apparently higher than CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, and AJ Brown, Nathaniel Dell.
He was an amazing route runner coming out of college, and when you combine the speed that he has as well too, yeah, he definitely is a very good player.
Stroud trusts him,
and Stroud is also extremely accurate as well too.
I love
and with no
CJ
Nico
Stroud
this week, then
I love that I picked up CJ Stroud in my keeper league off the waiver wire.
Boom.
Early this year.
What a win. Greg said that he was offered Kelsey and Dameon Pierce for DeAndre Swift. He said it feels like a no-brainer. I think I'd take Kelsey and Dameon Pierce.
Isn't this really just Kelsey versus Swift?
Yes.
And I would say that's pretty close then. And then you gotta look at Taylor Swift's schedule and how many games is she going to show up to really know when to start Kelsey. Apparently his points per game are higher when she's there bringing the magic. But they're pretty close in values, Kelsey and Swift. Probably Kelsey a little higher. He's had maybe a little bit of a down year for him, but he has had some huge games.
I think the only way I don't take this is if you already have like Hawk or Andrews, and then moving Swift like really hurts your running back room to where now you're depending on Pierce as a weekly starter. Like if Pierce enter your lineup because of moving Swift, then I probably wouldn't do it unless your tight end was just so bad.
Yeah, who are you benching at tight end to do this?
Right. Yeah, that would be like if it's like Luke Musgrave, just because he's the best waiver wire guy, then I would probably do it.
But if you have like a Kincaid too, like I think.
Oh yeah, then that would. Yeah.
It's not enough of an upgrade, I don't think.
Yeah. To then have to plug Pearson as your RB2 for Swift.
For sure.
But if Pierce is not plugged into your lineup for this, then I probably would take Kelsey. Do we have any other kind of start sits? Oh, Johnny, full PPR, Hollywood, Kirk, or Josh Downs. Full PPR this week.
Well, Downs, I think, is out unless he, and even if he was playing, I don't think he'd be.
I wasn't really going to trust him anyway.
Conversation. You said full PPR.
He didn't practice Thursday. I'm trying to see if I see anything for if he was cited today. I don't.
Pretty sure he's out. So that makes it kind of a tough.
They also play in Germany, so that's it's just the weirdness of that.
I've got them both, and I thought I did. That's why I was checking my rankings just to. They're very close. Marquise Brown, 13.7. Christian Kirk, 13.7. I think the matchup favors Kirk. San Francisco 28th against receivers. Atlanta is 5th against receivers. I probably, in Kyler Murray's first game back, would probably lean Kirk since he has been really solid. I mean, he did have the 8.6 point game against Pittsburgh, but before that, 19, 13.9, 14.4, 16.4, 15.4, 22. So, I mean, I would just go back to Kirk, I think, for safety.
I think I'm playing Kirk too. And just see what I will take the hit on Kyler's first week for the downside of like it's rusty, and I'll just play Christian Kirk.
He'll probably be fine, but when you have a Kirk, don't force Marquise Brown into the lineup
yet
in Kyler's first game back.
We got a super chat from Peter, and he said, making sure my message is above or on your radar. So I'm trying to find those. While I do, Greg said that he just lost Dallas Goedert. This was the Travis Kelce trade.
Oh.
He just lost Goedert, and he would have to start like Luke Musgrave or another waiver wire kind of tight end. So if that,
hopefully he doesn't have to start Dameon Pierce, because if you're going from Swift to Pierce,
Jacobs, Gus, and Najee.
Okay. So we're looking for Peter.
I am scrolling. Am I missing Peter's comments?
Maybe you could put it at the bottom.
Yeah, Peter, can you throw them back in here? I scrolled all the way up to like the beginning of the show.
Oh, he says, I have similar challenge this week with Higgins out, rosters Dobbs. It's way up. It's above, it's about halfway up, I guess. I have a similar challenge this week with Higgins out. Roster is Dobbs, JT, Bijan, Aiyuk, Dell, Laporta. Flex Ramondre, Addison, or Kincaid, or change current lineup.
Oh, found it. We got there. Thank you, Peter, for the super chat. All right, yeah. So roster is Josh Dobbs, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Brandon Aiyuk, Tank Dell, Laporta. Flex Mondre Addison or Dalton Kincaid, or change current lineup. Thanks, fellas. Thank you, Peter. All right, so
what scoring system is this? PPR. Got it.
PPR. He knew that was the next question.
Yeah, I mean, you got it. So I do like. I mean, Addison I think is like a borderline must start if Justin Jefferson remains out because KJ Osborne is concussed.
And he gets to stack with Dobbs too.
He should see a lot of targets, but I know that Ramondre is going to be fairly high in the rankings due to the touch floor.
Well, I was going to say, like, Dalton Kincaid, if he does what he's been doing the past 2 weeks, like, that doesn't make him an auto sit in this decision either. You know?
Got Ramondre projected for 15.1, Kincaid 12.7, and Addison at 13.5. So I do think that Ramondre is probably the start. Also, Indy is 27th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs. And then New Orleans is 15th against receivers. And Kincaid is, I mean, they're 28th against tight ends. I think tight ends tend to be a little dicier, but he has had 18 targets the last 2 weeks, 26 the last 3.
Without Knox, dude, he's been insane. He's been a
15.
wide receiver without Dawson Knox because they've been running a lot more 11 personnel.
This is a tough one. Who's he starting there? Dobbs, Bijan, Aiyuk, Dell, Laporta. Yeah, he's got to start those guys, right?
Yeah, I was wondering if you lean Addison because he's starting Josh Dobbs. Do you lean into that Minnesota Vikings stack as a tiebreaker between 3 pretty solid options?
I mean, it does give you a higher ceiling, and then you also have the lower floor because if the Vikings passing game just struggles against the Saints, then Dobbs sucks and then Addison sucks. So you either
does Addison get Lattimored? That with Jefferson out, there's that aspect in there too.
Kincaid's been the hottest the longest. Ramondre did well last week and probably will do pretty well against the Colts.
But that game is in Germany and it's weird.
It's not hard to hand the ball off to Ramondre Stevenson.
That's true. And I will say his other message in here says that my adamant call last week to start Ramondre Stevenson got him the W. So do we go back to the well of Ramondre? And I don't know if you do. I feel like
well, Kincaid has been 15 plus 3 straight weeks.
I'm going with Kincaid.
And Ramondre has been 23 last week. He's been 14.5 plus in 3 of the last 4.
I'm going with Ramondre. No. Oh my goodness.
23 last week. I do think that Ramondre has a higher ceiling because of he's got a high floor and a high ceiling just due to his nature of his number of touches he's likely to see. And if he has a big run like he did last week, he had 23 points. And he had 18 against Vegas, week 6. I would go Ramondre, but I understand the temptation to either one of these other two guys.
I wish I was more adamant about one of these three guys for you, Peter, so that I could try to double down on my juice for you. But I'm not. So I feel like Ramondre might be the play against the Colts matchup. It's a good matchup for Ramondre. I'm so sorry, Peter. I'm sorry we couldn't give you.
We did. We came to conclusion at least.
Peter gave Kincaid the nickname of Wincade, though.
Oh well, if you gave him your own nickname, you might have to start him. We have another super chat.
We do. I think I'm going with Ramondre. Back to the well, Peter. Ramondre. Jonathan hit us with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Flex won this week between Gabe Davis, Christian Watson, who is just crappy Gabe Davis, Cortland Sutton, or Tyler Algier. We got to pick one of these guys. These are so hard.
Yeah.
I wish I could just play Gabe Davis and roll with it, but you might not be able to afford to do that. Is it Algier? Are we playing Algier against the Cardinals?
No, I'm not. I don't think. I've got Sutton the highest actually against Buffalo. The defense is not as good as it used to be. Yeah.
I every single week I can't trust Cortland Sutton because I feel like it's just like he got the 15 fantasy points because he scored a touchdown, but he's scoring touchdowns every single week, and it's really annoying.
Yeah, he's got double digits in 7 of 8 games this year. Double digit PPR. He's averaging 12.9 PPR. But he only had 3 targets last week against KC. That was a really bad match.
They were winning like the entire time though. Javonte Williams had 30 touches. It was a weird game.
I would expect Buffalo to score more. I go Sutton. I don't feel great about it. I understand Davis as well, but I think Sutton's a little safer and has good upside.
I think if you need the home, can we do one of those things again where it's like if you need massive upside, just go for Gabe Davis. If you just need solid points, go for Cortland Sutton. I think Algier might be my answer over Sutton though to that, but I think that's how we can quantify Gabe Davis into this equation. Because it does feel like he feels like you have to start him every single week. But when you start him, he gets you 3 fantasy points. You hate to see it. All right. I think that's where we're gonna end it, unless we get a buzzer beater super chat. But thank you so much, guys, for hanging out for the past 90 minutes. If you have any questions on the Dynasty side that I did not answer, please drop them into the replay of this video. I will answer every single one of them in the comment section after this. On the redraft side, you can drop them into the comment section of the replay on 4for4, and we can get your questions answered over there as well too. But we appreciate you guys hanging out with us for the past 90 minutes. Yeah, hopefully everything goes well for you guys this week. Hope you win all of your matchups or lose them if you want to lose them in Dynasty. But have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you again next week for week 11. See you guys.